Welcome back to Take Action News, everybody. David Shuster here. If you have some student loans, if you've borrowed money to pay for college or graduate school, you're going to be in some trouble this summer because right now Congress is set to allow student loan rates, interest rates, to double, to go from 3.4% to 6.8%. Yes, 6.8 is what you will pay for your student loan if Congress does nothing. And right now it appears that Congress is going to do nothing. To put that in a little bit of context, 6.8%, the government is charging you for your having borrowed money for your college education. That rate is nine times what banks pay our government for the money that they received. That's right. The loans to the banks, 0.75%. The loans for students, the payback rate is set to go up to 6.8. 9 times as much. We're going to charge students 9 times as much as the banks we bailed out. That's where Congress stands. That's the priority in Washington. Support the banks, support the financial institutions. And oh, by the way, who cares if the students get screwed? Amazing. Thankfully, there's one senator out there, actually is going to be joined by a couple others. Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, she has now introduced legislation. And it can be fast-tracked, and it can go right to the Senate floor. It may go through the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. But nonetheless, her bill that she proposed this past week would set student loan rates, student loan interest rates at the same rate that banks get, 0.75%. Here she is on the Senate floor talking about that if no action is taken again, student rates are set to double. Listen.
In other words, the federal government is going to charge interest rates 9 times higher than the rates they charge the biggest banks, the same banks that destroyed millions of jobs and nearly broke the economy. That isn't right.
Not only is it not right, it's shameful. It's wrong. Folks, there used to be a time in our country when education, that was the highest priority we placed. Then if you were willing to work hard, if you were willing to study hard, if you were willing to go to school and go to college, you could graduate and you could make something better of yourself, no matter what your circumstances. And we set up this entire system so that you could borrow money to go to college. And a few years ago, the government did the wise thing by saying, well, wait a second, instead of allowing banks and financial institutions to run these student loans and to profit off of them, we're going to take them into the Department of Education. We're going to have the government essentially monitor and oversee student loans. Wise move, because interest rates fell a little bit. Student loans the students got better terms and they got from private institutions. And of course, why should a student have to pay outrageous rates to borrow for a college education? And what has happened is the Department of Education, because of student loans, the Department of Education made $51 billion. $51 billion over the last year just from student loan rates and the interest that students pay. That's pretty remarkable. And so what is our government going to do with that $51 billion that the Department of Education has been able to bring in courtesy of students? Well, you hear some Republicans saying, well, let's apply it to the debt. Let's try to balance our books with it. As opposed to, well, wait a second. Why don't we reinvest in education? Why don't we take this $51 billion, give it back to the students, or why don't we spend it on building schools or improving colleges? Since when are we going to allow students we're going to ask students to pay down the debt when we're not willing to ask the wealthiest Americans to contribute even a little more? That's crazy. And yet, that's where Republicans are right now in Congress. Folks, if you want to get involved, if you want to take action, and you want to make sure that student loan rates do not double, and that students are not forced to pay 9 times the interest rate that banks have to pay, you need to get a hold of your congressman. Go to popvox.com or go to popvox on our website, takeactionnews.com, and let members of Congress know that you support Elizabeth Warren's legislation, that you will not support Congress doing nothing and simply allowing student loan rates to double.